here is just we're just recording some conversation, a series of conversations that we find ourselves having by ourselves all the time. We talk a lot about healing. We talk a lot about wholeness, and really about what it looks like to live the best version of yourselves and the best version of your lives, whether that be career, whether that be in mental health, or maybe that be physical health. And we just thought we, bring this conversation to the masses, and hopefully it inspires others to, level up and love their life, right? This is called the Love Haze, and we really just kind of want to talk about rethinking how we love our life. So thanks for being here.
So first and foremost, I kind of want to talk about how we got here. Mm-hmm. So the Love Haze kind of came from a couple of different things that I've been doing with my writing and with just, I think, having different revelations in life as I go along my journey and have experienced different things, and realize that things can really be a haze sometimes, but also it's necessary. Sometimes love comes out of the haze. Love comes out of difficulty. A better lived life comes out of things that can sometimes be difficult. But also that everything doesn't have to be as difficult as we always make it. And so one of the things that I endeavor to do is always to be transparent in my journey, and always to talk about like how I got here, because I believe that information and knowledge is key to us being able to go further as a people, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. One of the things that I realized along the way was as I misstepped and made mistakes was that there were other people who would come out of the woodwork after I was transparent about my journey and say, hey, you know what, I actually went through that, and this is what happened to me, and I'm so happy that you're telling your story. And I think that sometimes we repeat patterns because we just don't have the information. Sometimes we feel like we're alone, and it's just me that's experiencing this, and everybody else is out there living this happy and fulfilled life, and everybody else has their stuff together. And here I am struggling with this thing. And so often what happens is that we are actually not sharing our stories. And the Love Haze is just birthed out of this belief that I have and that we have, that we profit and we gain knowledge and we glean understanding from sharing our stories, no matter what that looks like, our disappointments, our victories, our challenges, those things that are so difficult for us. And we advance the kingdom, and we advance our families by being honest about what we're actually going through.
Amen to all of that. So, your test is your testimony, right? And we often talk about how, for example, generational cycles, and how in our community, especially, but in all communities, you see generation after generation kind of going through the same things over and over. And a lot of times it's because sometimes the younger generation don't even know that they have inherited some cycle. It's because nobody's talked about it, nobody's shared. We understand that's painful, but really, not having silence, to, using your voice to break that shame, to break those patterns, and even just to try. And so another part of the Love Haze, we think, is like honoring that it's a process, that it's not going to always be easy. It is a haze. You got to take it one step at a time. And so we just want to socialize and normalize process, loving on yourself, loving on the people around you, having grace for yourself, saving space for yourself,
Absolutely.
Right? And getting to that next best thing, no matter what it looks like along the way.
I think one of the things that kept me from this for so long, so this has been my baby for a really long time. And so many people have said, hey, you need to blog, you need to, you need to record this, or you need to write a book, you need to do all of those things. And I think one of the things that held me back so long from that was like this idea that I'm going to be out front. And people are going to judge like my journey because I've been transparent about this stuff. And there's going to be someone that shows up and says, well, that wasn't my experience of you, right? I didn't get the healed version of you, or you're full of it, right? Or you're telling other people to do this thing that you couldn't do. And it kept me for a really long time from wanting to do this part of it, right? So I'm able to talk about sharing my story, but actually being able to do this portion of it, to be able to be honest about where I am, what I've been through, and to understand that somebody won't agree or somebody won't identify maybe like with the healing that I've done in the past. Somebody's gonna hold me to who I was in that time and in that space. And I think that if we hold ourselves to the old person that we used to be, we'll never give ourselves permission to move forward. And we just have to give ourselves permission to live life and to explore healing and to some degree atone. But more importantly, to forgive ourselves, right? To atone to ourselves for the things that we've done and understand that was who I was then. This is the direction that I'm going in. This is who I plan to be. And I'm going to show up in this space as my best self. I'm going to tell my story. Yep. I'm going to walk in my truth, beloved.
Come on, beloved.
And I'm going to keep it moving. And we'll keep learning together and grow together. And continue to make advancements as best that we can.
Absolutely. That reminded me of something, and of course I completely lost my thoughts, right? About being willing to be seen, right? So both of us started Brene Brown's Daring Greatly recently, and the whole idea of being in the arena and not being concerned about what the critics say, and just the vulnerability, the courage that it takes to be vulnerable when you are stepping out and saying, this is me, the courage to be seen. That's something I struggle with, right? Even as a performer, it's something to me that's easy to get out in front of people I don't know, right? And just get in some movement and be done with it. Choreographing is even more interesting because of the creative process. But then doing things where I felt like I'm maybe called to do more and being nervous to step out and do those things because of fear of judgment. Same thing. Right. And just really having to learn to let go of things that no longer serve us. And that's really what we are trying to put into practice right now. Like not being willing to be seen doesn't serve us because it does not serve the other people around us who need our stories to help them move forward. So this is where we are, family, right? We're trying to figure this thing out as we go. It might not be perfect. We're trying to settle into the discomfort of this thing.
Absolutely.
And we're just happy that you're here with us. We mentioned to you that this is a series of conversations, so this will be the first of a couple, we hope, over the next couple of weeks. And we really want to use this opportunity to talk about how difficult it is to take the first step. So we're going to use this first conversation to talk about firsts. And because this this session has been kind of your baby, like from the beginning, and it has been a labor of love getting him here, y'all. I want to start off. Let's start with like your perspective of it. So we are here at the point where you have taken the step. But let's back up and talk about how you know that there is something for you to do, right? What is that prompting? Where does it come from? It does not have to be a passion, right? So this is not something that you are passionate about. People call it a calling, right? So how do you know you are kind of called or led or supposed to do something, especially for people who like they might not have a passion project. Maybe they just kind of have some curiosities or some pain points or ideas about things. Like how do you move from kind of just this idea? Maybe is it a knowing in your spirit? What is that thing?
I think the biggest thing for me has been like watching friends and family and people that I really care about like actively make mistakes and feeling like there's some information that I could have shared that maybe could have prevented them from going through this particular season of pain, right? And you don't know what people will do with information, but it's almost like having this feeling that your neighbor's house is on fire. Or I'll say for me, if I watch my mama's house burn down and I don't do anything about it, I don't call the fire department. I just make sure that my mom gets out, right? But I watch her lose all of her possessions, knowing that I could have done something about it to prevent it, right? So watching my friends go through some of the same repeated patterns, some of the same difficulties, some of the same things that I may have gone through, and I just didn't share the information with them because of my own embarrassment about possibly how I handle the situation. Because what happens is, you know, sometimes even when we give people information, we want to be a savior, right? I want to give you this information that's gonna help you, or that's gonna save you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just need information to know that somebody else went through this.
Yes.
Right? Not that this is the formula for you to be rescued or for you to get through the situation, but just like you're not alone.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think when people are able to like universalize experiences, and that they're able to know that you know, you're really facing what every other man has met. At some point in life, we've all been in same or similar situations.
Right.
And it's up to you to find your own truth, up to you to figure it out. But also, there's this other information out there for you to filter through, and to know that this other person not only survived, but they found their way to thrivership on the back end of that. And you may be going through this in this season, but you can do something different.
Yep.
And so I think seeing that happen over and over again, and kind of like this nudging and this feeling, and I think it's from a higher power, of course, saying, so you just ain't gonna do nothing about that? So you just gonna watch your people suffer?
Perish?
Right. And you just gonna sit back and be like, oh, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
You know, I hope everything's okay, when you could have done something preventative.
Yeah. I think that is key. Not only an illustration about what you could get to, but also sometimes they are lessons for what you might not want to do, right? I love that idea of, like, basically what I heard you say is everybody wants to know that they're normal, essentially. Or Brene Brown says in her research that from that book, Daring Greatly, people just want connection. That is like the number one basic like desire. They want to be connected to people. They want to belong. They don't want to be an other, right? And so sometimes when we go through things, we feel isolated. We feel alone. We feel like we're the only person that is experiencing this thing. And so it's good to talk about it. One, to see that you're not alone, but two, see, like you said, how you can come out on the other side of it, whether that be good or bad. I know personally, I love that kind of stuff. I love watching like Unsung and True Hollywood Story and any of those shows where it like tells the person's journey from what, you know, how they got started, how people got started is like one of my favorite things to hear about and like their journey through it. So I think that's real. So you have this prompting, you know, it's a thing, right? It's something that you should be doing, you want to do. It's for the people, it's for the culture, right? So then you know that it is something for you to do. So then how do you get to the point where we are today, where it's the first step? You are taking the first step. And also, let's be real, how long that process took from like knowing it's something for you to do to like actually doing something about it. Like, let's be real about that, because everybody here saying, here I am, Lord, send me. People around here, you know, like nervous and scared and running away from it.
I'm definitely not one of those people that say, here I am, Lord, send me. I was just like, Lord, let me get by. And I think I just had to evolve my thinking. So one of the things that I just talked about was like moving from this mindset of survivorship into thrivership, right? And I think that we are taught at base, and that's some unlearning that I feel like I had to do, and I think a lot of my people have to do as well. That I don't want to live a life where I just survive it. I don't want to just get through stuff. Like I believe that God really wants us to have abundant lives, right? A life where we are contributing and a life where we are fruitful, leaving a legacy and building bridges for other people, right? And I probably known for 15 years that I needed to be building bridges. But there was this idea that
15 years, Shawty. Whoa.
There was this idea that if I can just make enough money to be a good husband and be a good father, and my family not want for anything, then that was enough.
Yeah.
Right. But that was rooted in survivorship,
Yeah.
not in being able to thrive and to leave something behind. And I just been sitting on this thing, and just I don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to rock the boat. And I think that I run from this for so long also because understanding that I'm in process means that, and a lot of times when, not that I ever expect to be famous or whatever, but a lot of times people will put you up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And think that you're somehow immune from the things that happen to regular people in regular life, right? And I didn't want to be on anybody's pedestal. I didn't want anybody to look at me and be like, hey man, that brother got himself together, or you need to be more like Scott, and that type of thing. Because a lot of times when that stuff happens, what I would see, or what I was most afraid of, was that God would call me to task, and God would challenge me, and God would put me in a situation that's one of my weak spots.
Yeah.
And I would not be able to make the right decision. And then there would be this entire fall from grace. And then here I am on the cover of the AJC. And then did something stupid, right? And I'm just like some other old pastor or professor or somebody else. Here is this person that we elevated who couldn't handle, fame or the elevation or whatever. And I really just wanted to live. I didn't want God to mess with me. I just wanted to be a good Christian.
Go on now.
And go and pay my little tithes and go to work and not bother anybody. And that's just...
I think where some folks, and since you brought up pastors, sometimes what we see in our community is often around that kind of thing. But anybody that is an influencer or a celebrity, right? You could fall into that trap, quote unquote, if you are putting on airs of perfection. But I think what we have here is an opportunity to say, we are not pretending to have it all together. We are not pretending to have it all figured out. That if you approach it authentically and say, hey, this is just me trying, and I'm opening up, like my life for you to see us trying and talk about trying, then that, I think, cushions you, right, a little bit from the fall, because there is no pride that you've set up for yourself. I also think that people who kind of go through that have somehow put themselves in a position to kind of judge people a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like they've judged people for how they're living, right? They're giving you tips on what you should be doing instead, but you just said, like, we're not here to say this is what you should be doing. I'm just letting you know what we've done and if it worked or didn't. And so if we don't position ourselves that way, the hope is that the same grace that we're extending for ourselves, that others would do the same. So it is difficult to be here, like putting yourself out, being vulnerable, stepping into the arena. We are daring greatly, and we know some people are not gonna rock with it, and that's okay. And if it's not for you, we welcome you to move on, right? But if there is something here for you, like that, let's just create a space where we have grace. Everybody has grace for each other. I think that's the thing.
I think also there's something to be said for this idea that I can show up as my authentic self.
Yeah.
This is who I am with my fears, with my faults, with those things that challenge me.
Yeah.
And allowing myself, right, to have this unconditional positive regard for my very own self, which says that no matter what, I'm gonna love me, right? And also having that same kind of unconditional positive regard for other people. And being able to say, like, you showed up in this space, and you showed up as a human being with flaws and with fears of your own, but you're here, and if we're in the arena together, then I'm gonna rock with you, and I'm gonna love you right on through it, and we gonna try to get this thing figured out together.
I love that. So we got some good stuff going on here. So you talked about, how do you know if there's something for you to do, and then how do you get from that knowing to the first step? You mentioned that it took you about 15 years to take your first step. I also just want to offer the counter to that is that that's not everybody's story. I know for me, I am constantly trying to do something in some form, and I know that I'm the person that gets in my own way because of that fear. So if I do things and I do it to high up, in a spirit of excellence is what I'll say. But I do know that sometimes I don't play as big as I could play because of that fear, right? Mm-hmm. So I am taking steps, right? But it is probably not, as mm-hmm. big as steps as I could take. Maybe I'm not thinking as big as I could, but mostly it's just that I shy mm-hmm. away from playing as big as I could play because of that fear. So just wanted to share that there are different faces of what this looks like. So every conversation we want to bring up a haze. Like what's the thing that's just tough and it's hard to kind of work through. We've already kind of talked about some of that though in mm-hmm. the barriers as far as like fear, being seen, fear of judgment, fear of messing up. All of it's fear, mind you. I hope you hear that. It's always fear is the culprit. Anything else? Like what else? What's the challenge in getting started and taking the first step? What's the challenge in for the first time being seen in a new way even?
I think mostly like the back end of that, which is like once you're seen, then you start to worry about like the perception. Yeah. Right? So I'm seen, but how am I viewed? Yeah. Right? And what if I don't come off right to people? What if people don't...
What if they don't like me?
Right. What if they don't... And a lot of times it's really just that simple, right? Mm-hmm. What if people don't like me? Yeah. Right? So that's one of the biggest things that kept me in my shell kind of for a really long time. Like some type of new challenge that called me to be outside of where I was comfortable. For a really long time, I was comfortable with like these small blog posts and, mm-hmm. Sometimes, with these small like Facebook posts and, having people who just like what I said and that kind of stuff and not really being challenged on my ideas and feeling like I shared a little bit of information, but just enough to where I was comfortable. And I also convinced myself that with the work that I did full time, I was giving so much of myself to help other people. Yeah. Like, okay, I need this break. I don't need to be trying to help people 24/7, and that's not what I want to do. So, kind of like you said, like not being as big or not operating in that space to where I convinced myself that I didn't need to do more. Like the only thing that I really need to do was go to work, be the best I could for my veterans, and come home and just not bother nobody, mm-hmm. right? And spend the rest of that time just caring about the things that I felt like were important to me, even though my truth was that this is very much important to me as well. And just being bothered in my spirit that I knew I wasn't doing enough and know I wasn't walking in my gift fully. Anyway.
Wasn't walking in my gift fully. That's real. For me, I think what it looked like is, so I took it a step further and, built sites, right? And mm-hmm. making the blog posts and reaching out to people in the community in a safe way. I'll send an email, I'll show up to a session in person. But one thing that I really admire about you and then other people I see around me is that their ability to self-promote in a way that it just feels cheesy to me. I feel like, no, I really don't want people to see me for real. Like, I don't want people to think like, why is she always talking about herself? Like, so I've always shied away from it. And really, I think what I'm learning is that there's nothing wrong with sharing with people what you're working on. Mm-hmm. And if I want more and think that I am made for more, then I've got to overcome that thing. And all of it is limiting beliefs from fear, right? I think the recurring theme you'll see in most life is that there is either love or there is fear. And it's a little bit more complicated than that, but either you move and make choices towards love, right, which is courage, which even if it doesn't feel good and warm and fuzzy, you either make choices towards love or you make choices towards fear, right? And so for so long, I think what we're both saying is that we made choices towards fear. And so we are now together as the hazes, right? Taking steps
Amen.
towards love, which is beautiful. So then one last question before we wrap it up. What has helped you overcome, right? So all of the barriers you just mentioned, you knew you were called, took you forever to do it. Even still, all of those limiting beliefs and fearful thoughts. What helped you overcome and what helped you heal and move forward?
I think a lot of it really has done, and at the risk of sounding really corny, I really have to say that like this partnership has really helped me a lot. Like I think being gently nudged into like this is what you're supposed to be doing. So and this is what you said you wanted. So when are we doing this? When are we moving forward? When is your website gonna be up? What day? Let me get your credit card so I can pay for this website for the year. That type of thing. But along with God continuing to nudge me, because I'll never downplay God's role in that. But just like also sending this partnership my way. This woman who said, okay, you can't continue to say that this is what you want to do and then there not be action behind it, right? And for so long I was able to allow myself to say that this is what I wanted or have like these ideas in private and nobody else get the information, right? Or maybe my Facebook or IG followers get the information and nobody else, and people say, hey, other people need to hear this.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Cool story, bro. I'm out. And but being pushed into my purpose, being nudged into my purpose, and also my gift just making room for me. I think people are asking me to like, hey, can you come and speak on this thing? Can you give your perspective? And me having to be like, hey, this is who I am. You're going to give me raw and uncut.
Yeah.
I might cuss. Right. This is who I am. But also understanding that there's a space for people who want to hear not big words and a whole bunch of psychological jargon and all that other stuff. They want to know, like, how do you do this from day to day? How do I live my regular life and understand that in this moment, I'm scared to walk into this next step? Because
can we stop there for just a minute? That's a word right there from the Lord. People think that in order to do something, or I'm assuming that people think, this is what I hear from people when I talk to them about their dreams, being scared keeps them from taking action. And I have to say that absence of fear, fear is the thing that you need to move past, right? You have to do it scared. Like we sat here nervous is all get out, right? Re-recorded several times, took deep breaths, said a prayer, and still there's some nerves there. Even as a performer, any audition I might go to, right? Any new piece that I have to submit as a writing assignment, there is still fear there. I'm nervous, but you have to do it scared. So I don't want to stop you, but that's important to know that just because you do it doesn't mean that you're not scared. You do it anyways. Absolutely.
And I'm speaking from a perspective of a person who loves the comfort of like where I've been planted for so long, and I've taken time to like, you know, create this safe space and this environment where I'm super comfortable, and then here you come talking about like there's new territory over here, there are new things that we need to do. And I think the thing that you challenged me most on was like the prayers that we pray together. Like the consistent prayers, hey God, you know, can you enlarge our territory, like allow us to advance the kingdom, give us what we need for the journey. And then you looking at me like, so you just gonna stay planted over there? But the reality is nobody really wants to be uncomfortable. Right? I wanna, if I'm going to the beach, I just want to put my big toe in the water. Right? I don't want to uproot. Right? I don't want to uproot everything I got going on, go jumping into this new environment, because what if it doesn't work?
And you know what? It might not work.
And that's the thing that has impacted me so much about Daring Greatly, right? Because for so long, I prided myself on just showing up.
Yeah.
Right? If I can just show up. Oh, but I showed up, right? And giving myself credit for that and allowing myself to then go home. But more than showing up, right? You have to show up as the best version of yourself and present and get in the arena and talk about what you have to talk about and be prepared for the win or for the loss, right? And then for the lesson after. And it's just about way more than showing up, because it took me so long just to even show up. For damn sure didn't want to get in the arena, right? And have all these eyes on me, right? And people being like, so what you about to say?
Yeah.
Oh, word? You ain't got nothing to say?
No.
All right, bet. We out. And feeling like I was just going to be stuck there and have nothing for the people. And then you paid all this money to come to see me, and I have nothing of substance to say.
So I think that's, though, a difference between being called and like you just showing up yourself, right? So for someone like commissioning you, like saying, hey, we have a place for you, a mic for you, right? We got like the people are here, they are willing and ready, and you just got to show up, versus like you saying, you know what, I think people need to hear from me. Let me buy out this space, sell these tickets, right? Create my own platform. And I think that's a difference here, that you did not start there and say like, hey, everybody listen to me. Everyone, lots of folks have come to you and said, hey, like this is something you should listen to. And I believe that those are all nudgings from God, from the Holy Spirit. I think that's something that people can take from, like, how do you know what's yours to do? Like, what are people asking you to do constantly? What are things that you're really good at? What are pain points? What are problems that you have to solve? Like what are those curiosities that you have about the world? What would make it better for yourself and other people around you? Like, those are things that you have to lean into to move forward into purpose living, right? Purpose-filled living. So
the other part of that, though, is when you start to, when those questions are asked, as they inevitably will be, you start to have to review those parts of your story that you have dealt with. For me, in therapy, those things that you've healed from, those things that you aren't the proudest of, right? And that's what transparency look like. That's what it looks like. That's what it requires of you. And it requires you to share those not so proud moments, as well as you're sharing your victories, your defeats, the moments when you reacted when you were not so proud, right? Yeah. You're answering all of those questions, and a lot of times we would rather not revisit that stuff. You know, I want to talk about my victories. I want to talk about when I won. I want to talk about when I bought my house, or when I got my new car, and when I did all these other things. And a lot of times we want to be in process, but we don't want to talk about the process, right? We don't want to talk about the ugly part and what it looks like. More importantly, I don't want to talk about the ugly parts of me, right? Because there's some things about Scott that are unsavory, right? They're not the most desirable behaviors. And you can get some of those parts of me still, right? I'm in this moment. I'm showing up the best that I can with the information that I know, and being honest about who I am. Yeah. And there's some other parts of me that are still in process of healing. So what I'm sharing in this moment are the parts of me that are healed. I'm sharing with folks the parts of me that still need to be healed. And there are yet still some things that I don't even know, some work that I don't even know about that I have to do. And being in the arena means being in front of folks who understand that all parts of you are there.
I would disagree. I think that, yes, being in the arena, I don't think that we can expect, though, for everyone that's out there to understand that. And I think the point of being in the arena, the point that Brene is driving home is that, or at least in the beginning, is that those people don't matter. If they're on the sidelines, not trying themselves, just getting by, sitting on the sidelines, just talking, keyboard courage, but not attempting to live life to the fullest themselves, those voices do not matter.
Mm-hmm.
What does matter, the voices that do matter, are the people that show up for you consistently, that know who you are, that know that you're trying, that can speak life into your, you know, your situation, or that can challenge you when maybe you're going astray. And so I think the point is that there you will have a mix of those. You will have people who get it, you will have people who don't, but the point is that you got in the arena anyways. I think is what it means to dare greatly, is what she's saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. But my truth is that I still worry about those people when I shouldn't.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I agree. That's real. But one of the things we love as a couple and in our household is music.
It's long.
It's on all day, all times in the morning. So we wanted to have a song for each of the conversations that we had. Like what moment or what music feels like the moment that we're talking about. So what is that for you today?
So for me, it would be Higher Calling by Big Crit. And he's really just talking about like we have a greater purpose here, right? But a part of that greater purpose is the work that we can do together. And that this journey within itself kind of leads us to our higher calling, right? Our endeavor to love, the endeavor to dare greatly, in life and in love, and just kind of will direct us to our higher calling. So definitely that Big Crit, you gotta check it out.
We got a higher calling.
All right, let's talk about some takeaways for our people, our family that showed up with us. So, Scotty mentioned Higher Calling by Big Crit. We started a playlist on Spotify. You can check it out in the link below, this audio or this video. And then also we talked a lot about Daring Greatly as a resource that has really helped us, a book that we read. We also saw her special on Netflix called A Call to Courage, which was really great. It really prompted us to read the book together. But there is a link to Daring Greatly under this audio, under this video, if you want to check that out. Have someone, an accountability partner, maybe to tackle some of the ideas together. But it really is a refreshing kind of take on shame and courage, vulnerability, and just kind of what it takes to show up in the world as your very best and most authentic self.
Absolutely.
So check those things out. We hope you come back for the next conversation. So we just want to say thank you. We are the Haze, the Hazes.
The
right?
Hazes.
Yeah, we hope you come back. We just want to say thank you. And until next time, we challenge you to rethink the way you love your life. See you next time.
Peace, y'all.
Why'd you take so long to come to me? Oh, baby.